Good evening and welcome to Writers Unplugged. This is a chance to hear your favorite writers or new to you writers in conversation as if you were eavesdropping on us in a coffee shop, or in Lori's case, a tea shop. My name is Jen Jumba. I'm a librarian at the main branch of Cleveland Public Library. One of my favorite things to do besides reading is talking to writers, an opportunity to get to know their craft, what inspires their stories, where they like to write, essentially getting to know them better and seeing them as human beings and not just the name on the spine of a book. And this evening, we are so lucky to have Rader-Day joining us to talk about her most recent book, The Death of Us. And Max Beck's Books on Coventry is our wonderful indie bookstore, and they have copies of her books just waiting for you. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. I'll be sure to ask her. But first, a brief introduction to Rader-Day. She is an award-winning crime novelist. She was born in Boone County, Indiana, lived most of her childhood in homes surrounded by cornfields and a graveyard. Atmospheric. She earned a BS and MA journalism from Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana. Yes, it's also surrounded by cornfields. And she later earned a Master of Fine Arts degree in creative writing from Roosevelt University, which is surrounded by, nope, not cornfields, Chicago. Lori is the author of crime fiction novels The Death of Us, Death at Greenway, The Lucky One, Under a Dark Sky, The Day I Died, Little Pretty Things, and The Black Hour, and has had short fiction published in several publications, including Ellery Queen Mystery Magazine, and her next novel will be released in late 2025, early 2026. I'm hoping for late 2025. She is the recipient of multiple awards: the 2016 Mary Higgins Clark Award, the 2022 Agatha Award for the Best Historical Novel, the 2015 Anthony Award for the Best First Novel, and then both the 2018 and 2019 Anthony Awards for Best Paperback Original Novel. She's been nominated for the Edgar, which is one of the highest honors in crime fiction, the Thriller, the Barry, the McCavity, the Left Coast Crime Lefty Awards. She's an active leader in the crime fiction community, a former regional chapter president and national board member for Mystery Writers of America, and is the past national president of Sisters in Crime, which are 4,500 members focused on equity and inclusion in crime publishing. She's also the co-founding chair of the nonprofit mystery readers event, Midwest Mystery Conference. She lives in Chicago with her husband, Greg, and their dog, Clementine. Now, I'm so lucky to know Lori and consider her a very dear friend, even with an auspicious meet cute in Dallas. But we'll talk about that never. As a reader, I think it's always special to meet the person who writes the books you read, creates the characters you come to love, creates the scenes that will make you second guess dark skies, cabins, reconnecting with former high school classmates, online groups, etc. So I'm so glad, and join me in a warm welcome to have Lori Rader-Day talk about The Death of Us.
Hello.
Hello. So
thank you so much for that introduction. That was very sweet. I do have bad news, though. It is going to be 2026, early 2026 for the new book.
Okay. That's okay. We have time to, reread everything that you've already written and get ourselves ready and prepared for what I'm sure will be another award-winning book.
And I had a chance to write another one. So, no gap in the next publishing.
Wow. Does it ever bother you that, it takes you a while to write a book and it takes us as readers like days or like an overnight or no sleep to blow through one of your amazing books?
I won't say it bothers me. I think, that's how I read too. So I get it. But it is sort of startling to be like, I spent a year writing a book and you spent 3 hours reading, tearing through it. But that's good news. If you tear through it, that means you enjoyed it. So
absolutely. It's kind of like the holidays. You spend all that time preparing that meal and then within like 40 minutes it's gone and you're like, wait, what?
40 minutes if you're lucky, right?
Well, I just pretending I wasn't quite such a heathen. I had some
I only know my own holiday table, and that's it's pretty fast.
Exactly. So we're going to talk this evening about The Death of Us, which is the latest book that you've written. And as librarians, we are frequently what we call hand selling in the stacks, right? Reader comes in and you're trying to figure out what's the best book to recommend. What are they looking for? What do they enjoy? What are they in the mood to write? So, how would you pitch or hand sell The Death of Us to a reader?
I'm a little rusty on this book because I've been working on my edits for the next book. So if I get
Yeah.
talking
Sure.
about something, you're like, wait a minute, what? That's the um, so I did just do an event where I had several of my books in front of
Mhm.
me, sort of a book fair situation. And it's a little bit of asking people what they want when you have all of my books in front of me,
Exactly.
sort of
Right.
hard to sell. Trying to discern what flavor of my books is this person looking for? Like, what would they most like to read? And The Death of Us, I think, from amongst all my books, is probably my most thriller. If I had to pinpoint that, I think they all seem like Laurie Rader-Day books, but people have opinions. Some of them are more traditional mystery, some of them are more sex suspense. So this one, I would talk about how it is a story about an average woman who, at the outset, looks like she has a very normal life. She's married, although that she's sort of broken up with her husband. They're going through a divorce, so they're kind of teetering on the edge of getting a divorce.
Mhm.
She has a teenage son. She works at his school. He's in that age where he's sort of like, get away from me, but also,
Yeah.
mom, just in
Yeah.
that teetering place as well. But the truth is that their family has a really strange origin story in that 15 years ago, one rainy night, there's a knock on the door that Lisette, the main character of the book, shares with her new husband. And it's the woman who has born the child of her husband. He cheated and when they were dating, and he has this young infant with this woman, and she shoves the baby at Lisette and says, I'll be back. But she doesn't come back. So she is never heard from again. And the book takes up 15 years later, where Lisette has raised her son, by every measure that she values, it's her son.
Right.
And a car is found submerged in a pond on their land. So not much of a spoiler because it's on the back cover. This is
Right.
the car that the woman drove off on in the night she disappeared. So the child that Lisette has raised all these years and been worried that she's going to lose him someday when his mom comes back. But she can't be relieved, right? Because now there's some kind of accident, maybe worse than that, going on, and her family is definitely in the crosshairs here. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I know, right? I feel like everybody's compelled to go out and get it right now. Oh no, I just lost my light. That's not good.
Technical difficulties, all this like COVID event stuff, and I hear you. I had to like find the camera.
This is so great. I'm like, wow, now like this is live for real. This is not something that is recorded. This is live. This is what happens.
I love it. Do you want to tell the story about how we met, or should I?
Well, you're the storyteller. I'm just the the fangirl.
I actually love this story. It's not a very long story. It's just that we were both attending BoucherCon, which is the big mystery conference. About 2,000 people, every year, moves around the country, and it was in Dallas. Right? It was in Dallas, so that's 2019.
Yep.
And I was there. I was kind of all over the place because it was the year I became Sisters in Crime national president. So I was doing a lot of meetings and running around crazy.
Very busy, very important.
Very busy. I used to go to these things and be like, why are these women like rushing by and being like, oh my God, give me a drink of water.
Exactly.
On by, right? And I'm like, what is their problem? And then I became that person, definitely. So it was Sunday, right? So like the whole weekend had gone. I won something there.
Yeah, I think you won an Anthony, didn't you?
Won an Anthony for best paperback. And then the next morning, everyone's like getting their suitcases like in and out of the bell desk. And I was waiting to put in my suitcase, and they went to serve me, and you were standing there. And I thought you were you hadn't been served yet. So I said, oh, and you looked at my name tag and you made this noise in your throat that I can't recreate, and I don't think you can either. Because
Nope.
it was from In a Moment,
Mm-hmm.
and I had never heard that kind of noise, and I thought,
And nobody has since.
and I said, do you know who I am? Is that what's happening here? And you said yes, that your patrons like my books and like wanted me to come visit Cleveland. And I said, well, that's funny because I also want to visit Cleveland. So we worked something out, and I did, and I've been there a couple times since.
Absolutely. I think part of the lore was that you are a huge fan of A Christmas Story. And I told you that if you come to Cleveland, that I will take you to the Christmas Story house. But the first trip you made to Cleveland, it was a horrible storm. Like there was ice, it was snowing sideways. The Christmas Story house was closed for like construction or something after the holiday season. And I was like, oh, she's never going to like me. She's never going to come back.
We
But
had a meal together and we had a good time. It was a good event. Met some
we
new
had a
friends.
great time. And then the very first day I started in this position as the manager in the popular department, it was you and Ann Cleves and I that kind of hung out and went to the West Park campus and spoke. So
No big deal. Ann Cleves came to your library.
I know. I was like, oh my, Ann Cleves is in my back seat. Like, drive so carefully. Lori Rader-Day's in the front seat. Drive even more carefully. So, it is a special thing as readers to connect with the writers they love. I can't explain that.
I mean, I'm that way about people. I'm that way about Ann Cleves. Actually, I went to visit her in England earlier. My God, is it this year? I think it was earlier this year.
Oh.
February seems so far away.
I
I went to the event in the UK that she helps. I don't know. She calls her the patron. She's the patron of the event. So she graces them with her presence. She's actually excellent on panels. And I got to go to that and meet some, editors in the UK and hang out with Ann Cleves, and it was great.
I know. Who wouldn't want to do that?
Picked up a G&T habit, and
there you go.
I mean, I get to do some really fun things as a writer. Meet librarians, meet readers. I love to meet readers.
Yeah, and I think I was talking to this with another writer recently, is that you write a book, right? And it's like your blood, sweat, tears, heart, soul goes on the pages and words. And then each reader that picks it up has a slightly different experience with the book and brings something different and sees something that maybe you hadn't quite intended. And I think it's really kind of neat, the conversations that you have. That's part of the reason why book groups are popular. And we love for you all to come to book groups, right? So you can hear all like these people. I know they don't like their voices.
Some book groups do like you to visit, and some book groups, I feel like maybe they feel like they can't say what they want to say in front of you. I feel like some book groups, they're worried that they're wrong, right? That their interpretation of the story is not what I meant, and so therefore it's wrong. But I don't really feel that way, and I don't know that most writers do. Maybe some do, but I like that part where they read it and they don't take something away from it, they bring something to it, right? Their experience and everything that they've gone through, everything that they like or don't like or think about or dream about, they bring that to the books, and then they help me finish the story.
It's awesome. So I'm joined in conversation with multiple award-winning writer, Lori Rader-Day. So we're talking a little bit tonight about the death of us, right? And one of the things that this book, there's a theme in here, is uncertainty. And very early on, there's a line that you write that says, uncertainty is another thing. When we don't know who to blame, who to hate, or who to fear, whose company not to keep anymore, that pulls at the threads of the fabric of community.
Yeah. So this is my first book published after the pandemic lockdown.
Okay.
It was my first book published after I survived breast cancer. I'm doing great. 3 years out now. Yep. So I wrote it in the pandemic, and I wrote it while I was I wrote it we were mostly out of the pandemic lockdown, but I had to do another lockdown because of breast cancer. So I was sort of locked down at home, trying to write, and it was really difficult for one thing. But we had just gone through this really terrible worldwide thing where it seemed like, you know, it didn't take much for people to sort of, you know, go, I don't know how to even phrase it, just to sort of be like, I'm not willing. I'm not, there's another line at some point in the book, deeper in the book, where I think Lisette is thinking, or maybe it was Mercer, because there are multiple voices in the book,
Yes.
3 different voices. You think I would know my books really, really well, backward and forward, but you would be wrong.
That's my job.
I have never been that kind of writer. People look at me and like, oh, that's good. Who wrote that? Oh, okay. One of the characters thinks like it was Mercer. So Mercer's thinking, we went through this terrible thing because it's after the pandemic for them as well. And people sort of pulled in close. They changed, they narrowed who they would care about and who they would protect and who they would stand up for. And it hadn't gone back yet. Like he's feeling this because people are being a little bit rather jerkish about the things that are happening. They're scared. When people get scared, they sort of pull up the tent poles and
they're about much more guarded and
yeah.
And
I get that. I understand. I mean, that was my reaction to the pandemic. I tried not to, put it on other people, but I remember sitting at this very spot at this computer, realizing that I was going to, cancel 4 months of travel and events that I had set up to promote The Lucky One, which was my book out in early 2020. Bad timing. Please read that book. It was great. It didn't get enough love. But I planned all this stuff, and then I had to undo all of it, right? Cancel about 5 months actually of stuff that I had put on the calendar. And I would see people on Facebook, doing live concerts. All the musicians were doing live concerts to entertain everybody, and people were putting teddy bears in the windows, right? And people were baking bread and sharing recipes. And I'm like, I don't feel that way. I feel small and scared, and I know it's not going to be a couple of weeks. It's going to be a long haul, especially I have some autoimmune problems. So I thought, not for me. It's not going to be 3 weeks for me, right? I'm scared. So I was at the time revising the book in between the Death at Greenway, which was out in 2021. It was revising at that time. I just gotten my notes from my editor. And so I thought, well, I'm writing a book about people who are isolated away from everybody they know, children who are taken away from their parents. We've seen that recently as well. So I think I can use how I feel right now and give that to my character and make this book better. So that's what I did during the pandemic.
Yeah. Well, Death at Greenway, it was during World War II that they sought parents gave their kids to a safe place, right? Not just any place. Yeah, just to get them out of the city and out of quote unquote harm's way. And they actually were at Agatha Christie's home.
Yeah. I know I'm jumping all over here. I know you've got some good questions for me, but Death at Greenway is set in World War II during World War II at Agatha Christie's house. 3 million people or more were moved around England, out of the cities and into the country. And 10 children were moved to Agatha Christie's house, which is a little fact I heard about when I was reading a book about Agatha Christie. And I just knew I wanted to read that book. I just needed to read it.
Yeah.
Except nobody.
So you figure, what the heck? I'll write it.
I mean,
was it win awards for it?
Is it Maya Angelou who said, you must write the book that you want to read? I mean, she probably has something else in mind, but if you want to read the book and it doesn't exist,
you write it. Yeah, I think
you write it after sitting on the idea for 5 to 6 years, and
well, it takes a while because it's not like you're just sitting around waiting for an idea. I mean, you are adjunct faculty, you teach creative writing, you're editing one book, you're promoting another book, you're noodling on, the pitch for the next book. So it's not like you're just sitting around doing nothing.
I do a good amount of sitting around, not to,
research. Come on, I'm trying to help you.
But I had to teach myself how to do actual research. I mean, I think all of my books have a little bit of research in them.
They do.
For The Death of Us, I had to ask a few questions of someone who knew more about quarries than I did, because I, putting a car and a body, no spoilers, it's on the back cover, into a quarry for 15 years. What will be left? If it's nothing, we've got problems, right? But yeah, so I talked to somebody who knew about quarries from the Geological Survey, which was very cool. And then I talked to someone who knew more about forensics than I do, about, I think it was, there's something left in the vehicle. And I want to check to see what would that look like? How could this be true? So a little bit of research for everything. But for that one, I had to figure out how to do historical research, which I am not a patient person when it comes to like the pre-work of writing, which, I mean, you may want to ask me about the pantsing versus plotting situation.
That's my favorite question.
Is it?
Are you a plotter or a pantser, or an architect or a gardener, right? But he loves it when we say pantser. So, Mike, this question's for you.
I will say it too. I am a pantser of a high, like a black belt pantser.
There you
so
go.
I think there's a spectrum, right? So there are people who, they all the way to the plotting end will spend months, working out what they're going to be about. And then there are people on the far edge over by me, over here. And we don't like to sit and think what things will be. We want to be writing. So I'm a jump in. Although gardener seems like a word that gives me far too much credit. I think that gives me far too much credit.
Okay.
I am a wildflower seed package opener.
Oh, it's almost like, minute to win it. It's, but like you got like, 6 months to win it. Like, all right, go, but I have to say, given the number of awards, and I've read every single one of your books, I would say that process works for you. So keep it up.
I actually tell, students and people at events, like, it really doesn't matter which end of the spectrum or in the middle, or, what method you use, as long as it results in the kind of story that you are proud of, that you wanted to write, or maybe something even brand new that you didn't intend to write, but that's something that you love, and that you find a way to make the process. It won't be easy. Nothing about writing a book is easy, but I think if you can find a process that sort of fits your strengths, you can make the road easier. You can make it the kind of project that you want to work on. If I had to do, like write out a 200 word, I don't know what I'm even talking about, like a plot. What's a plot look like? I don't know. If I had to plan it all out ahead of time, two things. I don't think that I would enjoy the process of writing as much, because I really enjoy that sense of discovery I get when things happen that I did not plan. And maybe some plotters find that helps them as well, I hope. Also, I don't think I would get my best ideas from that perspective. At the very beginning, when I'm just guessing, I don't think I would get my best ideas. I think I get my best ideas by writing into a situation, making some guesses, making some choices, and then having to work myself out of it, like literally getting stuck and having what I call the dark night of the soul.
Yeah. I think it's kind of like,
I'm not going to finish.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like readers. I mean, there's some of us as readers. So I'm joined in conversation with multiple award-winning writer, dear friend, Lori Rader-Day. So I think about, like, there are some readers who will flip to the last page and read the last page of the book. Oh, I know. They're the same people who don't use bookmarks, not my people. But they appreciate that, and then they read to see how it ended up like that. Like, they're interested in the process, right? Whereas me, I'm like you with the discovery. Like, I want to keep going, and I want to myself keep guessing, thinking I have it, and then I read the next chapter and I was like, no, that's not right. Then I read the next chapter and I was like, no, I thought I had it there. So yeah, I think, why should it be any different for writers, right? You have a process.
I mean, that's the traditional way to read a book is from page 1 to the end, right? But
Right.
I guess I'm writing with those kinds of readers in mind. The people who could jump to the back, they're going to do what they're going to do, whether no matter what I do. So
Mhm.
I do think about the readers who are reading they usually start off by just assuming everybody's a murderer. And these are crime fiction books, right? So
I
everybody's a
was gonna say,
murderer.
yeah.
They're all suspects. And so they're always like, oh, I had my eye on her from the beginning. I'm like, right, because you have your eye on everybody from the beginning. That's how reading
Exactly.
mystery works. But I don't know if I feel like if I'm writing a book and I don't know who the murderer is, if I'm just putting characters in place and any one of them could be it,
Mhm.
done it, um, then you can't possibly know. I mean, I've gotten all the way to the end of a book that I thought I knew who it was, and then I got to the part and I was like, nope, that's not right. It's not him. And I kept writing and I discovered who it really was.
Huh.
He was the
That always blows my mind when you all as writers say that. I was like, but you're the one creating the character and yet you don't know. But there's something in your brains, which is so wonderful, that you're able to kind of watch their interaction and kind of get to know them to know what would be authentic to who you see them as.
yeah. Exactly. You learn things as you go. And just like a reader does when they're turning the
Yeah.
page, you learn things or have an idea, 140 pages in and you're like, okay, whoa, that's good. I'm gonna make that true. So I'm gonna start from here and make that true for the rest of the book, but I'll have to go back and maybe seed a couple of, moments to make sure that all
Kind of
works well.
absolutely. And so this book, we're talking just about writing in general, but in particular, The Death of Us with Lori Rader-Day, told from like different perspectives, right? You hear from Mercer, who's the, county sheriff.
The town. See, I told you it's
Potty
been a
pants. No, I'm kidding.
he's not a sheriff, but yes, he's the town police.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And can I just say that the audio of this book is terrific as well?
Can I say that I don't listen to my own audio?
Wow. True. This is like true confessions. Seriously. No, I read this book when it first came out, and then because we were going to be in discussion, I was like, well, I need to reread it, right? So that I'm annotating as I'm reading to make sure that I had come up with like somewhat intelligent questions. And I also listened to the audio. And it's done from different voices, which is
Mhm.
really kind of neat. It's not just one person reading. And truly like engaging. I think coming home, I missed my exit because I was so like,
What's the best review ever when someone says they missed their train stop because they were
yeah.
reading? I love it. It's the best.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. So I'm joined in conversation, multiple award-winning writer, Lori Rader-Day, fantabulous. Just thinking about the characters in this story, right? Because you're going back and forth in time, like something that happened years ago, but is now rearing its head present day, right? So earlier you mentioned about the quarry, because the quarry has like a body of water and that's where the car is found.
Mhm.
And then you go on in this book in that section to talk about the limestone in the quarry, which this I found so interesting is that limestone was used to make things, monuments in Washington, D.C. and skyscrapers in New York City. And I don't think I ever stopped to think about like that. I mean, you think about them being built,
Yeah.
but where that material comes from, that's just kind of a fun, special touch to
Thank you.
make us look at things differently.
Yeah, that is actually maybe one of the first sections I wrote for this book. I usually write pretty much linearly, like just chapter 1, let's go. I was trying something that I did not end up using, a different kind of point of view when I was starting this book. And so I wrote this sort of like omniscient voice talking about the limestone and basically it's about taking, from this land where people
Mhm.
live and building, beautiful things that they will never see, that they will never enjoy or have the benefit of, universities and, monuments to art and commerce and things like that in places like New York City, which is true. There is a seam of limestone that runs through southern Illinois and southern Indiana. And in southern Indiana, there's a quarry called Empire Quarry. And it is where the stone from the facade of the Empire State Building was taken. The Empire State Building, of course, New York City. I was married there on the 80th floor in 2003, but it's just beautiful, thing that a lot of people who live in small towns in Indiana will never see, and they don't necessarily want to see them. They don't necessarily care. But I just thought there was something a little bit sad about that. Something I just wanted to slide in there,
No, what you did, because it makes me look at like the buildings. I mean, granted, it's downtown Cleveland, not New York City, but it makes me look at the buildings a little bit differently. Like the library in which I work turns 100 next year, which is pretty darn cool.
That's cool.
And when it was originally built, there weren't sprinkler systems. Books were only made of paper back then, right? There were no ebooks and no digital books and, audio books and playways. No wood was used in the construction. Everything was, either stonework or plaster or metal. And the metal was painted like doors. The metal doors were painted to look like wood. And the ceiling in the library looks like wood, but it's plaster painted to look like wood.
Protect the paper.
To protect the paper, that if something were to happen, it would kind of contain itself. It wouldn't have things to jump to and spread. But it just makes you look at things differently when you kind of think about the origin or where this may have come from, and
all the places that that very foundational piece of the ground in Indiana goes, or Illinois goes to all these places in the world. So there's something sort of aspirational about it too, if you want to see it that way.
Right. Yeah. You just have lots of great lines, right? Like the words to use and the way you choose to see things, and your character chooses to see things. And, at one point, Lisette is talking and she says, just this line, was she so bankrupt as a human being to resent a woman for being murdered?
Yeah.
Just like bankrupt as a human being. I'm like, wow.
Thank you. I like to write characters who are a little bankrupt.
Yeah.
Character,
Yeah.
Like I love having a line like that where someone's like, I noticed this line, I felt this line. And it's often a line where you're like, okay, I'm going to let this character be the meanest, the tightest, the stingiest that they can be, because we all have thoughts in our head. We don't voice them. Hopefully.
Well, some of us do. On paper. Right.
Comments. But yeah, and when you're like, we put yourself into these characters' lives and think, okay, what is the best way they could feel? What are the shades of gray that they will be feeling? And some of them are a little dark.
Absolutely. I am very much a character-driven reader. All of it's important, right? And you put it all together beautifully, but I find myself just drawn to characters, and you do a wonderful job of just capturing the complexity of what it's like to be a human being. Like, we're not all good. We're not all bad. We do things for what we think are the right reasons because we're protecting somebody, right? So you mentioned earlier, talking to Lori Rader-Day, The Death of Us, characters that are vile.
Yeah.
They're really mean. So I'm going to read this line because Vera has got to be one of the meanest people with this line. You've told me all about your life, but the problem is you must not see your own life very clearly or you would be embarrassed.
Yeah.
Oof. I read that and I was like, wait, I didn't do anything wrong, but like, oh.
Though, right?
From somebody that's one of Lisette's friends says that to her.
One of her closest friends. Yeah. She has her reasons. Everybody in the book has their reasons. Some of them are not good people. Some of them just want what they want. And, you can't blame them for, I guess, wanting things to be different. But
absolutely. Yeah, it's capturing that, just that it's a visceral response. Like reading that, I was like, oh my goodness.
Well, I will say that this book, there were moments when I was writing the third voice. So it's Lisette, it's Mercer, who is the police officer, and then there's another voice who kind of tells you a little bit omniscient, actually, a little bit more like, let me tell you some things. Let me fill you in. And you do learn who that is. I won't say who it is now because you don't learn it for a few chapters. But that voice is a nasty voice. And there were moments where I thought, do I as a writer want to put this on paper, what he's saying, what he's describing, what this voice is putting out there in the world? It's not, I had some qualms about this one because I don't usually write from what I would say a villain's type of perspective. I usually write from one character's perspective. Usually, some of them at the Greenway, 8 people.
Yeah.
But not usually not the villain necessarily, but a villain, somebody who has definitely done something bad and is going to tell us about it and be proud of it.
Yeah, I think that's the most startling thing. I mean, when you read books, you as writers give us this wonderful insight into a character's thought process, right? Things that if we were, watching or talking, we might not get, right? But we can see their thought process and trying to understand why they did what they did, right? I think, I can't remember who said it. It's not the, who did it, but why did it? Which to me is always fascinating, the human psyche. And then you take it up a notch with this voice that, is woven in between chapters.
Yeah. It starts a little bit as like a Greek chorus kind of telling you some things about how things are. And then sort of goes deeper into an actual character that you'll learn who it is. But
and then to be proud of it. Like, that's the other thing. You can't okay, can I understand? Because you're thinking this is the outcome I want. I'm trying to protect somebody, or I think I'm doing good. But you're not doing it.
I think, they're selfish people exist. And I don't, like I said, I don't often write it from that kind of perspective. But I thought, where this voice came from actually, is that I had been writing this book for a little while. I don't remember how long I had been going and how many pages I had, but I realized that I was writing about a mystery that was 15 years in the past. Okay. But I was not going to be doing a lot of flashbacks. I actually don't like flashbacks. Little known fact there.
Okay.
So I could have done a dual timeline type story where you're seeing exactly what happened page by page 15 years ago, mixed in with, what's happening now and how things are revealed. But I didn't want to do that. And because I already had I already had 2 voices, and I didn't want 2 timelines. It was, it can be done, but that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to see if I could keep in the now without too many flashbacks and just reveal information. But I realized the 2 people who are giving us the information were not
there.
They were not able. Lisette was there, but she's not able. She doesn't know. And she's a detective. She works at her kid's school. She's like a guidance counseling secretary, right? She's an administrative assistant. She does not have the freedom or the chops to go, private investigate. That's a different kind of book. So, and Mercer is an investigator, but he wasn't around. So I needed somebody who would tell me, to be honest, someone who in the book who would tell me what really happened 15 years ago, so I can tell you all.
Yes.
So who was around? Who can say?
What is that called? Is there a writing technique for it, or should we just call it the Rader-Day technique from now on?
No, there's probably a very fancy word.
I'm just curious because it's one of the questions I have, and I'm writing it down. I was like, I don't know what this is called when you have somebody whose voice is infused.
There probably is literally a $15 word for it, but it's it's a little bit of an omniscient narrator, but he's not all knowing because he's not telling the whole story, but he's telling his part of the story. He's witnessing the things that are happening a little bit. He's a little isolated, so he's not seeing a lot of what's happening now, but now is visiting upon him, right? So he's engaging with now when people show up to where he is. But I got the idea from two books that I read. As we're talking to a library, I will tell you about these books, and I recommend them both. So I had just read from the library, actually, I think, Remarkably Bright Creatures.
Oh, it's one of my favorites.
So good.
Yes, so good.
By Shelby Van Pelt, I believe.
Mhm.
She's local here. I've not met her yet. Shelby,
Yes.
if you're out there, I would like to meet you.
Yes,
Um,
me too. She's coming to Cleveland. Want to meet her here, even though she was there.
And then I read Hollow Kingdom by Kira Jane Buxton.
Okay.
That one's they have something in common, but they're very different books. So Remarkably Bright Creatures, almost everybody's read it by now, but it's got multiple characters, one of whom is an octopus who is
Marcel.
in his last thing, and he's a witness, and he's an active participant in some of the story, and he's got parts of the story to tell that nobody else knows, right?
Right.
But he can't speak it. He just tells us as a voice, as a narrator.
Yeah.
And then I read Hollow Kingdom, and it's told entirely from the perspective of one character who is a crow who cannot, he can speak a little bit, right? But he doesn't speak in sentences. But he's a narrator, and he's telling us everything he's seeing, everything that's going on. He's very active.
Right.
He's got a great voice. So he's he's really funny. I won't tell you what he calls humans. It's a little bit of a horror novel if you don't like.
No, I'm part of a horror book discussion, so we'll add this to our list.
Post-dystopian kind of thing where all the humans have died, and he was very attached to the human that he lived with, so he wants to save the humans, but it's a little late for the humans, unfortunately. But he's hilarious. So those two books back to back, I'm reading animal characters that are telling the story, but they can't reveal to everyone around them things, but they can tell the reader things. And this, I mean, I don't know why this is such a revelation to me, but I was reading these things right as I needed to read them, and it just happened. I'm like, this is what I need. I need a narrator who can tell me things about this story but he can't be compelled to tell his son, right? Or he can't be compelled to tell the police. So it's a human, it's not a crow in my case, but
or an octopus
for the voice came from.
Well, I'm so glad you used it, because it was really an interesting touch to be able to have that perspective as a reader.
And interesting to write too, trying something different. That's what I like to do. I like to try different techniques. I don't know the names for them, but I like to try them all.
Well, we're just going to start naming them after you. So all good. So I'm joined in conversation with multiple award-winning writer Lori Rader-Day, talking about The Death of Us. Just even the title of the book. It's a throwaway expression that we've probably all said a gazillion times. And it wasn't until I picked it up and I was like, ooh, where did the title come from?
The title actually literally came from me writing that sentence in the book when, so Lissa's son, her, it's complicated, but her son has a friend who's been hurt, and they go to his house to take him a little gift, and the kid's mom comes out and talks to Lisette and just says, oh, these boys, they'll be the death of us. And I just wrote that down, and I thought, ooh, I think that's going to be the working title. We'll see. So titles are not entirely up to me. I will always name a book something and that I can work with, and maybe it changes a little over time. And then when the publisher gets a hold of it, sometimes they have very distinct opinions about what it can be called, what it can't be called, how many words I can use. Thrillers are often very short titles. It's very hard to get more than 4 words out of a publisher.
I'm looking at my bookshelf right now. Oh my God, you're right.
Yeah, they're all very short. It's like a tone thing. I think the more words you use, the more literary you expect the book to be, or the more maybe historical. It's a tone. It's the same thing with book covers, right? The book cover design, I don't have.
Oh my God, so good.
It's very good. It's I don't think it's the Midwest. I read about the Midwest
and a lot more Yeah,
or
pine tree.
pictures
Yeah.
on the covers of my books. I did get them to take out the mountain though. So there used to be a mountain behind the word death, I believe, to the right. And I'm like, well, okay, just get rid of the mountain and we can use this one. And also got rid of some rocks you could see under my name because that meant shallow water. And this is a
Deep
quarry.
quarry.
So it's not going to have rocks like that. It's not going to be like a shoreline type situation. So yeah, it's just it's a give and take, you know, it's a conversation. I get to consult. But sometimes the publisher will like the title that I've been calling it. And sometimes we have to go back and forth. There have been books of mine where I have had to give them just a list of all the things I could name it. And then they came back and said, what about? And it was like a title that I'd given them in the first list. You know what I mean? Like the first 5 titles I gave them, it was one of those. But, you know, I had to spend 5 months suggesting other things. And then what about that thing you suggested already that we said we didn't like? And
Isn't that kind of how we shop as girls, right? Like we try something on and we're like, oh, okay. And then we go to like 10 gazillion other stores and try on a bazillion other things. And then we end up going right back to the very first thing.
it grows on you, right? Like
It
you don't
grows
see
on
it
you.
and you're surprised, like, what, the death of us? What does that mean? And then after a little while, you're like, yeah, the death of us. I think that's the one. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I always like that. I don't ever suggest a title I can't live with because that is absolutely the one that they will choose.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I only suggest titles that I can get up in front of a room of people and say proudly, "This is my book."
Yes,
Right?
exactly. Yeah. The other thing that I'm struck by in this book is that things happen in the blink of an eye, and then like the domino effect of these what seemingly was like an instant, and then the almost like the ripples, the impact that it continues to have. You know, from kids coming home from
Ripples, good one.
oh, I didn't even think about that. God, I'm good. No, I'm kidding. I just think about like dominoes, like this thing happens, which impacts this, and next thing you're going back to a case that was 15 years old that was never solved. So I'm just struck by that. We think like what we do doesn't matter, but somewhere along the way, it does.
Yeah, I think the things we do in our communities matter. You know, the people we're actually we live near. I don't know. We live so much online, but it's hard to write about online, right? Like those stories aren't that interesting. Maybe because we live online so much, we actually want to read stories about real life and things that happen in real life or lifelike, situations. I'm really sort of dedicated to writing about. I mean, they're odd situations. I never end up writing about like an average woman with an average life. I mean, like that was my dog rattling. Newsflash: my dog has been here the whole time. She's my co-author. She gets no credit. A little while ago, she was chewing very hard on a bone, and I was like, "Give me that."
Yeah.
But now she's just gonna dig into some squeaky toys, so that'll be fun for everyone in a minute.
Yeah.
But I like to write. I start writing about a normal person, and I'm like, "Yeah, but how did this person get here?" And then, we all have like really individual stories. So why would a character not have individual stories? So they always end up having like these very, circuitous lives that end up just where they are.
Yeah, you did blend a little bit the online world with the real world in The Lucky One.
Mm-hmm.
Where it started as an online group looking to find people, and then they actually met up in person.
Yeah, for sure. That was a fun book. Fun is not the right word, but it was tricky because again, it was a little bit like, okay, how do I tell this part of the story that I really want to tell? And in that case, it was an actual Greek chorus, the kind of voices sort of talking amongst themselves, a chat room. I have heard that the audiobook does not handle that very well, and I apologize for that. That book taught me to think about the audiobook in a way that I had not so far in my career. Now I have to think about, okay, the audio reader is going to read literally everything I put on the page. So it has a lot of regard, RE. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Sorry.
No.
Read that one on paper.
Absolutely. No, I mean, all your books are so fabulous, and you're right. I think they start out with somebody who appears, right, and you kind of just never know people.
Yeah, you never know people, what they go through in their private life, even people really well. I think that's probably a pretty good theme of mine. You don't really know the people you think you know.
Right. And then I also think the other theme that comes through in all of your books is like what we do for the people that we love.
Yeah.
I think that I know that comes through each time I'm reading one of your books. Is a lot of the actions taken are done for that motivation.
Moves. I was talking to somebody online today about writing, and I don't know, we were talking about the book I'm writing now, which is called Wreck Your Heart. It'll be out Thursday 26. That's the title I gave it, and I got to keep it so far.
That's awesome.
It's got a community in it, and I said to this friend I was talking to, I'm like, oh, I really like a story that has like a person finding her community, and like found family and finding their place in the world. I just really like stories like that. Like that's what writing is. Like, what kind of stories do I like? Obviously, I like crime fiction enough
Right.
to some mystery, some puzzles, but also just characters figuring it out, as we all had to do or have to do still.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, it's not much different than real life, us trying to figure out where we fit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it's always an interesting thing, that your books start off, and if you're pitching, like we started at the very beginning about somebody who shows up on somebody's door sopping wet in the rain and hands a baby and says, here, watch them, and then never comes back. But then you start to see like the the nuances, the layer upon layer upon layer, and it's fascinating to be able to take that dive. And then I think it makes us think as readers. I don't know if that's your intention as writers. Like, what would I do? How would I approach this situation? Would I be like bankrupt, as a human being, or would I be, vile like Vera and be like, God, if you could only see your life, you'd be embarrassed. But there's a line at the end in terms of like, there are good people and there are bad people. And, Lisette kind of vows to be one of the good people in the world, that sometimes you forget with all the tragedy and all the bad stuff that there's still good.
Yeah. But not that they're bad and good, but they're people, and people have moments, they have bad moments and they have good people with good moments within themselves, the same person.
True.
And she tries to do a little better. She's not actually a bankrupt person. She's got some bit left to her that she's willing to offer.
Absolutely. And then, just naming your characters, like you named her, her son Callan, which means stone, and Lisette immediately goes to like, oh, like a burden or a sinking. And I'm thinking, no, that's like, stone is like strong and strength and foundational and what you build from. But
I mean, you're getting to right now is my favorite writing topic of all time.
Yes.
Point of view, right? Because I've got 3 narrators, Lisette, Mercer, and this other voice, but they each see the world differently. And that's what I love about writing. Like, just that's the kind of discovery I like. Like, who am I talking to here? Who's on the page? How do they see the world? And then putting things in front of them and letting them use their perspective to get things wrong sometimes. Like there's something in that moment that Lisette is ignoring that could, wreck her world. She doesn't know yet, but what she sees is, his bio mom named him this, and he's like a stone around her neck. The burden she has given this tiny child that I love so much.
Yeah. It's fascinating. You
I
know,
loved it. I could teach like, an entire semester class on point of view alone. Like
well,
just
good. You
nerd
teach it
out
and
on
I'll sign up for it. Yeah, no, epic fail. I think I'm just designed to be a reader.
that's fine.
Yeah,
We need people who are readers.
true. Gosh, I can't believe like time has just flown by. I could talk to you for the rest of the evening. But as we wrap up, the final 5 questions, right? So for each of your books, and those of you who don't know, you have a playlist
Mm.
for each one of your books. Who's your favorite band or musician?
Well, I think we share this. We've talked about this. I love
Mhm.
Lord Huron is a
Mhm.
band that I love, and I think every playlist has one of their songs on it. I might have to add one though, because I don't think it's on the new books playlist. Uh-oh.
Oh,
The new book, Wreck Your Heart, is
yes.
about a country music singer. And so that playlist is very, don't be scared. You don't have to like country music to like.
No, I love country music.
I'm talking to other people. You don't
Oh,
have to.
other people listening, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's a fun character and gets into lots of trouble. So that's a fun book, but it's because she's a country music singer. I have like lots of Patsy Cline, so I've been listening to a lot of Americana music and classic country as a way to get into the story. But I also just like it. So gone to a lot of shows. I have seen Lord Huron in concert.
Okay.
But I think the next time I get a chance, I want to sit close because I was really kind of up in the nosebleeds, and it was like, that's a band that I would actually like to see, close.
Yes. In a smaller venue.
Yeah, well, they may be past their small venue
I
moment.
know. That's the thing. I saw Lake Street Dive this summer, and they were phenomenal in a smaller venue. And they were just so great and so much fun. What is something that is always part of your writing routine besides Clementine?
Besides my dog who's walking around.
I just saw the tail.
I can see her tail.
Mhm.
Tea. I do drink tea, hot tea. I broke my favorite mug today.
Oh,
Rest in peace, favorite mug, but it's okay. I have lots of mugs. Hot English breakfast tea with milk. I drink it English because I picked up my tea habit in England. Sometimes with sugar, sometimes without, but definitely tea.
definitely tea. Are you sweet or savory?
I mean, both really, just food. Cheese and bread. That's my answer.
There you go. Yeah, seriously. Can't go wrong with that. What is your favorite holiday tradition?
We just did our tree last night for Christmas. I was put off because I've been working on edits very, very intensely. So last night I sort of just like called it and like, they're doing this. So I love to put the ornaments on, but I have the real tree like with my husband, but I have a little fake tree that's on our dining room table, and it is my tea tree. That's how much of a nerd I am about my tea. So part of this is from Death at Greenway, going to England, research, blah, blah, blah. But I've been drinking hot tea for years and years and years. So that's not just that. But I started getting lots of little tea things. And so I put them on this little Christmas tree. It's getting a little crowded.
Oh,
A little cake and a little Christmas pudding.
A little scone.
Dublin a couple of years ago. So yeah, it's getting a little crowded, but I love it.
That's awesome.
I'm turning into a Christmas person. I am definitely turning into that person who's like, I don't really do it up. It's very low key, to be honest, but I'm getting to be that person who's like, festoon.
Yes, which is awesome. I mean, just makes.
It could be other things. It could be something much more damaging. I'm a little bit of a tea nerd and a Christmas nerd. Something like there are lots of pillows in here. I don't know if you can see it. There are throw pillows back on that corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of throw pillows.
Perfect. And then the final question.
Lots of throw pillows.
Which character would you take a road trip with?
Ooh. This is a little bit of a cheat because it's going to be the character in the new book. Dahlia is her name. And she's just super fun. She would be really great at the radio. and playing the music for it, but she doesn't actually have a license. She doesn't drive. She's Chicago born and raised and never got her license. So you'd have to do driving.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So as we wrap up, a thank you to everybody who is watching and listening. And thank you to Mike, our tech team, for making sure everything ran smoothly. Huge thanks to Max Bax Books, who has copies of Lori's books. So it's the holiday season. An entire backlist is a great gift. I'm just saying. And then finally, a huge thank you to you, Lori Rader-Day, for continuing to talk to me after I made it incredibly awkward.
We became friends instantly in that throat noise moment.
It's my throat. But I was like, God, they have bird calls, right? So why not have writer-reader calls?
I heard my person.
Exactly. I'm Jen Jumbo with.
Thank you so much for having me, Jen.
Yeah. Jen Jumbo with Writers Unplugged. Thank you so much and happy reading.